Well. It's Saturday. It's February 17th. It's noon Eastern time. I am Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. It's time for my weekly Ask Me Anything live stream. But before we get to that, FootballGuys.com is now the website. I appreciate you joining me here every Saturday at this time. Also for my weekly On the Hot Seat live streams. A little more on that in a minute. This week the schedule is a little skewed, but we'll get it sorted out. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell if you've done those things, like me or not. Michael, your call. I'm just happy to be here. Happy to have friends here who come join me every week. I see Troy Olson in the chat. Good morning, Troy. Having a great day. Scampers on board. Hello, Troy. Good to see everybody. Yeah, a lot going on this week. Because what? It's the first week without games. It's an amazing thing about the NFL. They have created a 365-day-a-year reality show for all of us to enjoy. More from the Super Bowl into the scouting combine, into the free agent signing period, into the OTAs and mini camps, or into the draft, and then OTAs and mini camps, then training camp, and then preseason, regular season, Super Bowl, scouting combine. Yeah, it's an endless wheel. Good morning, Royal Slade. Thanks for coming. Hi, Dame. How are you? Good to see everybody. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Always appreciate your time. A lot of choices out there. I'm glad I'm one of yours, and you're certainly all one of mine. Happy to be here today. So have some things going on, a little newsy stuff we can touch on to start the thing, to get the ball rolling here a little bit. And I think it's interesting. And by the way, tons of new content going up on Football Guys. My weekly column will be coming. I'm going to talk about some of the things. It's just a fantasy notebook. It'll be out every Monday. I'll talk about, and, give you a little preview of some of the things I'll be discussing in it. But just kind of like, this is the time of year, right? So what I call it is we're building a data continuum, a baseline of information, right? Like, why people are wondering, why are you in I'm not Mike Dempsey. Mike Dempsey is currently in 35 best balls. I'm in about 3 right now. That's enough. Also have a lot of mock drafts going. I'm going to go ahead and plug in some of the mock draft links here into things. Andrea. Hi, Andrea. Andrea watched or followed along. Can't watch on the radio. You have to follow along and listen. But we did have it up in a Google Doc. I'll put that Google Doc in here. We did Dempsey and I did a Superflex mock where we just took 6 teams each. And you wonder how representative that is. People thinking differently. We have a plan in the future. We're going to switch off rounds. Maybe the first round we'll do the teams we do, and then I'll do his teams. He'll do my teams. And, and we often have guests for these mock draft shows as well. So we'll do that, but we'll mix it up. And Dame has not yet dipped into the best ball world. The mean streets are rolling, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the values and what we should do with them. The underdog big board and little board contests are going. I'm in the big board contest. The 8-hour drafts are ideal. I accidentally got in in a 30-second one at the start of a radio show the other night, and I probably made about 4 picks that whole draft. It was over quickly. It was merciful. I ended up with 9 quarterbacks. No, not 9, maybe 4. Which I wish I'd ended up in our Superflex mock. That was the first one. Funny thing about Superflexes, and it just seems to be a recurring theme for me going back a couple of years, is each one is its own unique, distinct creature, right? You just don't know. You don't know how the people in the room are going to value them. And I thought it was kind of last nights that we did. I'll go ahead and put the link in now. Because I thought it was kind of indicative of what I've seen for the most part is, sometimes they're quarterback crazy. Sometimes it's a little more dialed back. I mean, you're always going to see a big run of quarterbacks in the first round of Superflex drafts. But after that is when it starts getting, a little more interesting to me. You just don't know how it's going to play out until it plays out. So there is the link to if that works. See if that one works. If it doesn't, too bad. It's also on Twitter, so I'll tell you where to find it on Twitter if you can't. I'm in some other mock drafts as well. I've got the NFL.com mock draft I've talked about a couple of times. That's ongoing and interesting. Been some interesting picks drafting with the likes of most of the NFL.com people. Matt Akata, Heath Cummings from CBS is in there. Michelle Majuk, Michael F. Florio. Marcus Grant, Jeff Erickson, myself, Laquan Jones, among others, are in that draft. So I'll go ahead and put that link in. And if you see anything in any of these drafts, I'll kind of touch on them as we go through the conversation. But if you see anything in particular that prompts a question or gives you some specific information or, sparks your imagination a little bit, go ahead and call it out. And we'll discuss them. Yes, it works. I love everything works. And let me know if the sound is any issue. I think the new setup here got a whole new setup, man. I'm like joining the modern times. We really need to know the scoring in Superflex. Sometimes a quarterback three. It's true. We went fairly generic, right? So, we didn't specify a scoring system. It's kind of like a roster lineup. And we only go 8 rounds on these because we have a 2-hour show. And we want to talk about the picks a little bit to actually be of some value to listeners. So that's kind of the endeavor. It is very generic. There are Superflex rankings up, rookie Superflex rankings up at Football Guys. All kinds of stuff going up at Football Guys. The rookie draft guide is available now. Get it completely free. Just go put your email address in and you can download it immediately. And really great job. And it'll be updated throughout. Like right now, the combine information isn't in there. And so there'll be iterations of this as it goes along. But man, Christian Williams, Kevin Coleman, Jeff Bell have done a fantastic job on this. Totally comprehensive, rankings at each position, overall rankings, everything you could want. And then as time goes on, the combine numbers come in, they'll add those. So that's completely free right now, Football Guys. Sigmund Bloom has the first of his series, what we learned this year up quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are his starting point. And so he has some nice lessons. And again, my weekly column will start Monday, just a fantasy notebook, kind of empty it out. I mean, each week I'm going to focus on a new offensive coordinator. To me, these are very important things, right? The coordinator is key and it kind of informs you what direction things may go. So I was starting to explain, this time of year, you're more listening and watching and hearing what's being said, and you're setting that baseline. So as we go forward, we can see what happens compared to what's been said at various times. And these are the things that offer us clues. And I'm going to say this, Sigmund Bloom and I talk about this every year. At some point I'll go on the couch and we'll talk about the only time it seems that coaches really tell the truth. And it's at the scouting combine. There are press conferences. Pretty much every head coach who's there does a press conference. Every GM that is there does a press conference. And if there's a time when there's going to be some transparency, not necessarily on picks, but just on general plans, big picture items, it comes there. And it's interesting to watch how that plays out over the course of the offseason, how the actions will back that up. And that's the thing, right? Like not everything they said is totally, is totally going to come to pass. But I mean, I can go back and remember, you'll hear things where, oh, wow. What was one that really struck me years ago? Greg Schiano, then at Tampa Bay, after he came in and Josh Freeman had a serviceable season, right? But I mean, he just made it sound like there's no way this is working. You're thinking, wow, that seems odd. And it turns out there was no way that was going to work. And it didn't work. And off they went. So you see these kind of examples. And so it's something I pay close attention to, those series of press conferences, to kind of lay the groundwork. And then we start building on it from there, right? And we see things like, what is said about a player's health or their recovery, or we find out about procedures. These things often happen as we get, a lot of times we don't find out someone had something done until the start of OTAs. So he's not working because, there's players who I'm going to be totally unsurprised. Like if Travis Kelce, we find out that he had a cleanup or some procedure, secretly, and not a procedure like to sober up after the celebration. By the way, horrible events. I addressed them in the last live stream. I don't want to rehash that over and over because it's just a horrible occurrence in Kansas City and something, just hoping for the best for everyone and hoping we can get some resolution to some of our problems as a society. Not necessarily optimistic on that, but we'll see what happens, right? This is you hate to think that this is just how we go about life anymore, but it seems to be. But anyway, I'm going to get too much into that. Hey, Troy, thanks for showing up. I appreciate you coming. I know you were here a little early. 34 degrees in Santa Fe. It's cold here. I don't have excuse me, while I step out of frame to check my temperature. I forgot to put on my Super Dick Tracy watch this morning, which I always do, so I can keep up with the news while I'm talking to y'all and the temperature. So this is what we're looking for this time of year. Clues. We're setting, we're starting to set the baselines, and then we'll compare. It's, you're looking for differences in what's said versus what's happening, or what hasn't been said versus what's happening. Those are distinctly different things, yet they are both, illuminating. We hear a lot of lies, and a lot of the lying is done by omission. 26 degrees in Buffalo, says Andrea. What is it? It's 39 in Dallas, Texas. It's sunny. The yard guys aren't here yet. It's horrifying. Radio show later today, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have Brian Drake on. Fantasy Points. We'll have Joe Pisapia from FantasyPros, one of my favorite people on earth. Will be coming on, and I'll just sit back, and Dempsey and Pisapia will argue. Here we go. Joe Pisapia, author of also the Black Book series of great fantasy materials. So anyway, we're starting to sort those things out. So a couple of newsy items here to get going, and some of the things that we're kind of figuring out. Heading to the beach today in California, says Kevin Coleman. Great debut appearance on the Diehards this week, by the way. And again, one of the three responsible for the rookie draft guide available right now. Football Guys, really great, huge body of work, 150 plus pages. So Kevin, Christian, Jeff all do a fantastic job on this. And again, updates will be forthcoming. So check that out. Tons of rankings already at Best Ball Rankings. And again, I'm already out there drafting multiple best balls. I'm out there doing multiple mocks. Why do we do this? You want to be steeped in the topic. I want to be steeped in the subject. I want to soak it all in and know what the hell's going on. And all these things that I'm doing now are preparation for when it really matters in August, or when I'm discussing things with you here every week, or on the radio show throughout, or writing columns of Football Guys. You want to be able to say, look, I'm doing this, and here's what I'm seeing right now. And here's what I expect to happen 3 months from now based on what's happening now. So we're trying to forecast these things and figure some stuff out. And so how do you do that? You start drafting. And my goal is when in August hits, I don't want to be caught short. I've been caught short in a number of drafts this year, a number of the early drafts. And, the most noticeable to me was, I think it was a 10th or 11th round. I wanted to land Brock Bowers, the incoming rookie tight end, who Kevin Coleman will tell you is very good. You can get it online, Andrea. Get the rookie draft guide from Football Guys. Just go to Football Guys. You don't have to pay anything. Just get on the mailing list, put in your email address, and you can download that rookie draft guide immediately, like right now. Then you'll get a daily email with some news and some information. You don't have to buy a premium subscription. You don't have to get anything. You can just get that email and get that email every day, and you'll get a nice little news compendium put together by some really great people: Sigmund Bloom, Cecil Lammy, Joe Bryant. So you'll get that every day. My weekly column will come in that on Mondays. It's some Bloom's work's coming out right now. So check all that out, Andrea. It's totally free to download the rookie draft guide, and well worth the effort. So get on it. So getting back to the newsy things that we were going to start, I was going to start the show with here. Justin Fields, news. We were waiting. Dave Kluge has a great article on why the Bears should move on from Justin Fields and move on to Caleb Williams. I think, one of the things that's really struck me talking to pretty much every expert, most every expert. I think Kevin might be me and Kevin might be the lone standouts here. I kind of do a little litmus test question, but who would you take first overall in a startup dynasty, super flex at quarterback, and I think most of the experts say Caleb Williams. I say Anthony Richardson because I can't not. I am a hammer, and Anthony Richardson is my nail this year. Can't stay away from that. Not staying away from that. All in on that. And I know Bloom, and what we learned, his quarterbacks, what we learned is he sees a ceiling as, just in regular one quarterback league, quarterback 3 upside. I agree with that. Like we got a taste of it. He's got to stay healthy. But if you think the Colts don't view him differently than he was viewed by the vast majority of people coming to the league, this is going to be in my notebook this week, people. Big chunk on my guy, Anthony Richardson. You guys know how I get. You know how I get when I like somebody. I can't leave him alone. I'm stalking him. Jahmyr Gibbs will tell you I will chase him down all year long until it comes to pass. So Justin Fields, a lot in the news this week. Teams that are interested. Luke Getsy, the former coordinator last year, the coordinator in Chicago, now has that job with the Raiders. They suddenly, he's talking today like, we eager to work with Aiden O'Connell. Right. Eager to work with future backup Aiden O'Connell when we find a real starter. Jimmy Garoppolo, by the way, suspended a couple of games, essentially ending his time as a Raider, costing him $11 million. This sounds like kind of a hinky deal where he was taking some legitimate, whether it was a medication or a supplement, that he just needed to get approved and he didn't check all the boxes. It's an $11 million failure to check a box. At my house, that would get me in trouble. I think Jimmy G will be just fine, but damn. So yeah, Justin Fields. We mentioned with the Raiders in conjunction with the Falcons. The Steelers have been mentioned. Jerry Dulac reporting from the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. There appears to be some internal division about who should be the starting quarterback next year. You think? Mason Rudolph made a pretty strong case. Kenny Pickett. I mean, did either of them make a strong enough case to keep them from moving on and getting someone else in position? Russell Wilson's been mentioned there. I don't know if I have high hopes for Russell Wilson, but we'll see. I think the latest one was Mike Tomlin really is a big Justin Fields fan. I think a lot of people who don't have quarterbacks are probably big Justin Fields fans right now. So that'll be interesting. That'll be a situation worth watching. And again, Dave Kluge, great article up at Football Guys right now on why the Bears should move on from Justin Fields. There was some conversation this week. Who was it? The Bears executive, I think the team's president. I should look this up before I say something totally stupid. I say things totally stupid all the time, don't I? Here, let me just see if I can find this real quick. Yeah, here talk that the Bears want historic compensation. Who was it? It's one of the team executives, and he had a pretty strong take of the pretty strong message in support of Justin Fields. Let me see. You'll bear with me here. Oh, it's Kevin Warren, the team's CEO. That was a lot of effort for like something not very exciting, not a huge payoff. Fields to follow Arthur Smith. That's been maybe Ryan Tannehill follows Arthur Smith. Maybe Ryan Tannehill. Did you hear that talk? Look, it's Coop. Kenny Pickett breaks the elusive 8 TD. I don't. Not in Pittsburgh. I think. Stupid talk. No filter is so much more fun, right? Like people call you out for that. It's good to see you, Coop. Nothing better than a little football talk in February with all of my good friends out there. It's one of my favorite things to do every week. It's like something I look forward to. And then later in the day, I have to sit down and talk to Dempsey. At least we got people like Pisa Pia and Brian Drake coming on. And at some point, Andrew Cooper, there's no escape, Coop. Kevin Warren, and I think the comments were interesting, and I know they'll be viewed in a way, depending on how you feel. I'm a supporter of Justin because I got a chance to work with him when I was commissioner of the Big Ten Conference, Warren said. He's incredibly talented, he's smart, he works hard, and he wants to be a great NFL football player. Now he just needs to make sure he has the support around him. He's working hard. I would love to see him this offseason and make sure he's totally healthy going into next year. Pro Football Talk. That sounds like an endorsement of Fields, along with a plan to keep him around. It kind of does, right? He went on, Warren said. Justin has a rare combination of intelligence, of size, of strength, of speed. You forget how big of a man he is until you're up on him. He's not a small man. I just think every year he's going to get better. I'm glad he's a Chicago Bear. That doesn't sound like somebody who's ready to move on from someone, right? It's interesting, but they are. Maybe he's just, I know, he's driving up the price, right? There are going to be teams interested. It seems like, Caleb Williams is the kind of generational talent they talk about. Was Bryce Young a generational talent? I can't remember. Was CJ Stroud a generational talent? He was not. He ends up looking like one. I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say this is not an exact science, people. And maybe the scouting part of it is and understanding the players is. I want to say with Anthony Richardson, it was a huge miss. You know who didn't miss on that? Matt Waldman has been saying the same thing. I read an article on Colts.com, Chris Ballard talking about him and, how great of a passer he is. And the team kind of suspected this. Matt Waldman came right out and said it last year. I'll, check out my notebook column this week. I go into that a little bit. That it's more like translating his abilities to the game and understanding the scheme and things like that. I think the early indications are he's a lot better at that. So here we go. Williams to Washington. That is, the whole Cliff Kingsbury thing brings that up, right? The whole Cliff Kingsbury, wherever Cliff Kingsbury goes, the quarterbacks follow, right? Kyler Murray in Arizona now, and I think it's a pretty fair point. MHJ to Chicago, Mayor Daniels to New England. Fair enough. I do think that's, Marvin Harrison Jr. to Chicago is interesting. I mean, that would be, if the plan is keeping Fields, that makes sense, right? That makes sense. Hello, Wendy. Thanks for coming. Happy to see you here. That makes actual sense. Like I can see that, and that is the true intrigue here when Cliff Kingsbury gets hired. In case some of you weren't maybe aware, Kingsbury's been an offensive consultant for USC, where Caleb Williams plays, is very familiar with him. You remember the circumstances when he went to Arizona. I mean, I can remember talking to Dempsey when they hired Clint Kingsbury. He said, they're going to end up with Kyler Murray at quarterback. I said, come on, man. At the time, the circumstances seemed like they didn't align. My super flex mock draft last night, I drafted Marvin Harrison on my Kyler Murray team. So I'm hoping Royals laid that doesn't come to pass, but totally makes sense, right? Totally makes sense. It's one of my favorite theories of the week so far. I think I like it a lot. Murray over Richardson. Okay, so JSC wants to know Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray. This isn't even close for me. Troy Olsen, it is close for. Murray over Richardson because he's a proven version of Richardson. He is not. He is not Richardson. He is not 6'4", 250 pounds. He does not have, I mean, they're similar speed and mobility, but the size, and I would say, Murray is a more proven passer for sure, but I'm not, they're different players. They're different players. Some of the same skill sets, but different players. AR for me easily. I think, look, I just think, to me, we kind of see where Murray's look, and Kyler Murray, I'll just say this, to his credit, much to his credit, a guy who played in that air raid style offense since he was a small child, right? Going back to high school, followed him along everywhere he went because it obviously, highlighted his skills. A new staff comes into Arizona, Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator. That is not an air raid. It took some adjustments for Kyler Murray. He made those adjustments. I felt like he looked adjusted the minute he walked on the field. I think he felt good in that offense. Now, I mean, he was there all along, working in it and working behind the scenes all, the entire time. But to come in off the field, come in, cold to, for our appearances, right? We do this as people, right? Like as fans, as fantasy managers, we see that tip of the ice, the very tip of the iceberg. And there's this huge body of work that goes on underneath. It's the same thing I talk about when we get angry because we don't see a player we feel like should have more playing time, get more playing time. It's not because, what we're seeing on the field in that narrow band of time isn't happening. It's because of we're not seeing, which is the vast body of work that's going on every single day in practice and in meetings and etc. So anyway, I just not because I'm going to argue with Troy Wilson about this. I like Anthony Richardson way better. I think the upside is, I think he's top 5 or better upside. I don't know that Murray has that, but Murray with Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, and a proven ability to run this offense, and possibly Marquise Brown back. He's a free agent. We don't know that he'll stay, but they're buddies. There's, could something be worked out? I mean, Marvin Harrison's not going to be expensive. He's on his rookie contract. So Trey McBride's still on his rookie contract. This is totally doable. So it's worth, I mean, given the difference in pricing in early best balls, let me just take a quick look here at the underdogs and see where we're at on pricing for those fellows. Because I think that does make it a little more interesting now that we've sparked this conversation. So Anthony Richardson's going off as quarterback 6. Unless you're drafting with me. You're probably going to have to take him sooner. Kyler Murray is quarterback 12. He's going off at 91. Current ADP is 91. Richardson, 54. It's a pretty big difference, right? Like I can see the path there to it, right? I can see the path to being more into Murray. I'm like hammer, nail. Hammer, nail. I'm the hammer. Richardson is the nail. But if I miss out on Richardson, and I've missed out on him a lot. I have miscalculated in almost every draft. Every draft. If you were the Jets, Steve Pavia wants to know, would you draft another quarterback in the first or second round? I might. I mean, the word is that Aaron Rodgers wants to play 2 more seasons, right? He's got to stay healthy for those seasons. It would be helpful if they drafted some offensive linemen early with some picks. So maybe that might be a little early, right? Maybe if you think you can develop somebody, maybe go a little later with some of the later quarterbacks. Kevin, if you're still in the chat, go ahead and throw out some names that you think might be suitable for that kind of development, or merit that kind of development, or who might go a little later. I think that's an interesting. I mean, they need one, right? Obviously, sounds like they might get a third day pick in return for Zach Wilson right now, and I heard Woody Johnson basically said, I mean, what we all probably know is his words were, we didn't have a backup last year. Sorry, Zach. Moms across America. No, he's good. Being a Pats fan, I would love it if they would persuade Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins to draft. Being a Pats fan, Royal Slade, I think you would co-sign on that. I mean, Pats, where they're sitting right now, I mean, will be positioned to get a quarterback. Will they get a quarterback? I mean, I've seen mock drafts that have them getting one of the top 3. I mean, currently, if you're looking at mocks, I think I see a lot of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels going, and it seems like May is falling. Drake May is falling a little bit, but I don't know if that's a real thing or just a perception, right? Like, did he have a bad workout? I don't know. But I've seen him falling. In some of these drafts, I'm checking out the football guys, the rankings on the initial single quarterback consensus big board of how this looks. Harrison 1, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, Rowan Dunze, Caleb Williams is at 5. This is in a single quarterback league in a rookie rankings. Jaden Daniel is pretty far down the ranks. I think the concern with Jaden Daniels is I think people think he needs to sit around for a year. And I think that's probably the same for Drake May. Drake May is Jaden Daniels is 8. Drake May is 10 on this overall ranking. So, by the way, go out and get that. It's free. Once again, take the young guy. Don't spend $34 million on mid vet. That's the thing here to me, right? If you're who are those veterans you're going to get? Like Justin Fields, you're going to have to pay him, right? You're going to have to give him a new contract. I think of the quarterbacks out there, do you want to take on Russell Wilson? I don't know. Fields for a third, I may be okay with. Yeah, and I think the Bears want a bigger haul, but I wonder realistically what they will get for him. It'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of with you there. Fascinating stuff there. The quarterbacks, quarterback is always the focal point at this time of year, maybe more so than it should be. Any other news that was of interest? Daniel Jones, what are the Giants going to do? He's aiming for training camp to be healthy. Seahawks giving Geno Smith at least enough money to keep him on the roster. Could he be had in a trade? He's a reasonable value. I think his total contract's like $19 million. They paid him the $12 million guaranteed. I think 24. I think I'm misstating it. It's like $24 million or something. That's a pretty good price for a pretty established quarterback, or at least one that's had a couple serviceable seasons. More than you can say some other guys. Daniel Jones being one of those guys, right? Is he a guy that, he's begun running on the anti-gravity treadmill? That's what I want. To have anti-gravity anything. I don't necessarily want to run on it. I just want anti-gravity. I hope to be ready for training camp. There's a lot of talk that they'll draft a quarterback fairly early to come in and start competing. Joe Morrison, writing for Pro Football Network. Joe Mixon basically finished, unlikely to return. Jay Morrison, I'm sorry. And that's interesting. I mean, he did a deal last year to stick around. Would he do that again? I don't know. Would anyone pay him more? I don't know. Running back free agency is not for the faint of heart, people. And if I say that from the running back's perspective. Tank Dell expecting to be ready for OTAs coming off a broken ankle. He's an interesting one. I heard Russ Wilson put his house up. He did. 20,000 square foot house. That's a big house. $25 million he paid for it. He had the money. Man, that's a big house. 20,000 square feet. My house is not that big. I would have extra room for my guitars and my drums. Interesting. So that kind of news. Will John Law be on the show as we get close to the NFL draft? Of course he will. I had him on, I want to say 2 weeks ago. He was the first of, now I'm hearing more and more people, kind of going like, I think, it's fair to say Marvin Harrison Jr. is the near consensus wide receiver one, but I'm starting to hear a little more Malik Neighbors. John Law was the first of those guys. I know on the single quarterback consensus big board of football guys and the rookie draft guide, it's Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze is at 4. Rock Bowers is number 3, by the way. I think that's pretty much the consensus. Troy Franklin at 6. Brian Thomas Jr. is interesting. Wide receiver from LSU playing with Jaden Daniels at 7. Xavier Worthy at 9 overall. These are, the rankings here. So a lot of receiving talent. We can see a lot of receivers go in the first round this year. And based on what we saw in last year's fantasy drafts, I think people will be chasing many of those first round picks. I do. We'll rent it out. We'll have the nicest Airbnb. We'll subdivide it into 10 Airbnbs, 2,000 square feet each, like a regular size house each. That's a big house. 20,000 square feet is big. That's big. All right. So anyway, back to the point. John Lobb will be on Dynasty Hot Sauce with a couple of friends of mine next week. Lobb has been out there. He just did one with Sports Affiliation this past week with Greg Kellogg and Tip Major, and went into depth. I had him on the radio program. I'll have him on the live streams here as well as we get closer to the season too. Always a good resource, and nobody pays more attention during the college season to the college players than John. We'll also have Matt Waldman on a fair amount. You can bank on that. And I'll have guys like Kevin Coleman, Jeff Bell, Christian Williams, all on to discuss their processes and what they're seeing and how it relates to dynasty football as we get closer to dynasty drafts. I had dinner last week with my friend Scott Barrett from Fantasy Points. I'm in a dynasty league that he runs with very big name people. It's a horrifying league. And our rookie draft is before the NFL draft. And it's very difficult. And I'm I'm in compete mode. I'm at the point of a dynasty world where you're deciding, am I good enough to get to the top, or am I just going to be like a low tier playoff team? It's a fair point. Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Bears to compete with DJ Moore. Kind of scares me. Depends on who's throwing, right? My guy, Joe Hebert, Neighbors wide receiver 1 in this class. He fits the NFL profile of a top receiver more than Harrison does. I'm hearing that more and more. I'm hearing that. I think that is being a well-held position. And Joe Hebert, former football diehard staffer, knows his rookies and dynasty choices as good as everyone. I would like to welcome the Yard Guys to the show. Welcome, Yard Guys. Thanks for coming. Always appreciate that. I'm just happy they're here before the radio. The radio is much less forgiving about Yard Guys up in my business than the chat here. This is interesting. Like I was thinking the same thing about Arizona. Like if you have, I'm all in on Trey McBride, assuming Marquise Brown remains, and they bring in a Marvin Harrison Jr., that'd be a hell of a lot of throwing to satisfy the values of all those guys. Trey McBride was essentially a wide receiver 1 last year in terms of workload. And once he took over as a starter from week 8 on, the numbers were impressive. I'll just bring them up quickly because I have them in my hand because my buddy Zach Kruger over Roto-World put them out. After taking over as the Cardinals' number 1 tight end in week 8, McBride led all tight ends in targets per route run and had a 26.2% target share at 149.5 fantasy points from week 8 on. That was not first, by the way. Evan Ingram at 160.7 and David Njoku at 159.6 led the way. What's David Njoku going to do? How's everyone feel about tight ends this year? I don't feel great about them. I mean, like once you get out of that top tier, like even you get down, beyond, I want to say the top 4, it starts feeling uncomfortable to me. I don't feel great about it. And by top 4, I should define that for you, so I'm not leaving you hanging. Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Mark Andrews. After that, it gets a little dicey, right? I mean, and I'm looking at the current underdog best ball rankings. Dalton Kincaid is tight end 5. I think that highlights it, right? That kind of tells you the whole story. George Kittle next. Mr. Hit or Miss to me. Brock Bowers, I might be more willing to go in on him. Evan Ingram, last year's high scorer. Will they have the same dynamic there? Calvin Ridley could be gone. Evan Ingram was crazy busy last year. Crazy busy. David Njoku, a lot of that was Flacco related. I don't know what to make of this offense with Deshaun Watson back in. If you look at that Superflex mock draft that we did last night that I put the link into, if you missed it, scroll on up the chat and you'll see it. Yes. Would MJ? Yes. His fantasy stock would. I think it would. I mean, if they invest in him, who is going to be the quarterback? I think that's the question, right? If they don't invest that early draft capital in the quarterback, who's going to be throwing to him? I don't know that I feel good about anyone currently on the roster. I don't know if anyone currently on the roster is going to remain currently on the roster either. So there's that. Very interesting. I want to look at the at that draft. Deshaun Watson was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He went way I drafted Baker Mayfield ahead of him and then drafted him. And part of that was because of the way the teams laid out. But I want to say I got him in what? I got him very late. 8th round, or not the 8th round, was the 1, 2, 3, 4th round. I got him after Baker Mayfield, after Aaron Rodgers, after Jared Goff, after Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert. So he was right outside that quarterback, right at the tail end of the quarterback ones. I don't feel comfortable with it there. What do you guys feel about Deshaun Watson? Do we feel good? I think this is a good point. It's absurd. Drafting rookies is absurd. It is and it isn't. I mean, I still have ended up with really good players, and we're drafting with, I don't want to totally name drop, but it's big names, and everyone's super competitive. It's the Matthew Berrys, Evan Silvas, Pat Thormans of the world, right? It's just a tough crew. It's a tough crew, and they all take it really seriously. And so, and I see a lot of outs on Watson. I'm kind of with you. I mean, I don't know. At some point, I mean, can we not just recognize that he is not the guy that he was in Houston? I mean, fantasy managers out there still thinking that 2013 Josh Gordon is going to show up are probably all in on Deshaun Watson too. Better tight end performance last season equal murky waters, false hopes, in my opinion. Maybe a repeat of the quarterback evaluation in last year's in drafts last season. This is true. How loud is the yard guys with the new setup? I think it's probably louder than it used to be. Apologies for that. I'm working on the yard guys. As you can see, very hard. A lot of outs on Watson. I want to get back to this point because I think it's interesting. And I'm going to talk about this in my notebook this week. The values you can get right now, like at running back, right, in best ball drafts, by taking cheap shots on players. I mean, there's a lot of moves that we don't know in free agency. Well, how can we leverage those moves? Well, in current best ball drafts, you can leverage them easily because there's players that are going to be available super late that may end up with huge roles that are definitely worth rolling the dice. Bring up the list here because it is impressive, or potentially impressive. I mean, it's not impressive now, but that's the whole idea. Hi, guys. Zach Moss, running back 49. Gus Edwards, running back 54. J.K. Dobbins, running back 55. Antonio Gibson, running back 59. A.J. Dillon, running back 61. These are all guys going after pick 163, right? I mean, there's a whole list of guys that I'm willing to roll. You can't hear the yard guys? That's great. Maybe the microphone is doing its job because it's like super loud here. This is fantastic news. Thank you for the information. But these are the kind of running backs. And so to Kevin's point, you can hit. She is a smooth talker. I love this chat. It's the best thing ever. But I think that's the point. There are values to be had. So, people always ask, well, what the hell are you drafting this time of year for? I mentioned at the top of the program. By the way, if you just came here and you're wondering what the hell's going on here, I'm Bob Harris. I do this every Saturday. You can ask questions. I'll answer them, sometimes correctly. You can find me on the X device at FootballDieHard. You can find my work at Football Guys. My weekly fantasy notebook column will be coming out on Monday. That'll come out every week. I'm going to take a close look at the Atlanta offensive coordinator situation, what it might mean for us as fantasy managers. Be some other good stuff in there on Anthony Richardson and on some of the running backs I just talked about, the values that you're finding right now in early best balls. Because why? Uncertain situations. If you're out there drafting right now, and you should be, for the reasons I stated at the top of the program, because you want to be steeped in the subject. You want to have a feeling for where players are going at various times of year so you understand how people see them. So I think that's totally a great reason to do it, especially if you do this for a living like I do. But many of you out there do it because you just love doing it. And I just love drafting, right? It's just fun. And what I want to have happen is later in the year. I mentioned earlier, I started with explaining, and one of the mock drafts that I put up the link up to, scroll up the chat, you'll see it, is I wanted Brock Bowers. I missed out on Brock Bowers by a couple picks. And then I had that moment where I didn't have a backup plan in my head, right? Because I haven't drafted that much. So I sat there and I took Jerry Jeudy. And I like to think that no player is off limits to me. Jerry Judy's as close as it comes to off limits, right? I mean, I'm not happy to take him. I took him, but only because I wasn't better prepared. I didn't have a full understanding of the rookies yet, and I don't have, and I'll be working on that thanks to Kevin. He has a great point here as well. One thing we have seen is a shift in the rookie wide receivers for sure. You used to be able to get the top prospects much later. You're not going to be. I can tell you for a fact this year in the early mock drafts and the best balls that I've been in is Harrison and Neighbors are going, and Dunze is going fairly early as well. I've seen Harrison go as early as the second round. I think that's a little over aggressive, but that's what you're going to see. And that means there will be some great value at wide receiver with this deep class. For NFL teams, I think so. Kevin, you can chime in on that as well. But I think that's the big point. So, if you think last year to all the, rookie wide receivers, a huge number of rookie wide receivers, they had varying degrees of success. Turns out one of them can't catch the ball very well. Quentin Johnston, to me, the most physically imposing of all those guys. The guy who, eyeball test-wise looked like he would destroy the world, did not, because you have to be able to catch the football effectively. I hope he learns that skill. But the other guys, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, will be rising up. But, beyond that, Jordan Addison had a great run. Zay Flowers had a great run. It was a good year for the rookie wide receivers. And I'm guessing another one is coming. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. If you want to know where you can find me later today, you can find me on the radio from 3 to 5 on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. They tell me it's channel 87. Dial it up. I'm going to be on every Saturday. Dempsey and I will be up till the draft-ish time, and then we'll go back to a more robust schedule. We just got done with our 4-show-a-week run. Now we're into 1 show a week, which is perfectly fine. We'll start bringing in beat writers from various teams and having a couple beat writers and a fantasy expert on and kind of dig into the usual kind of things we have done over the course of time on Diehards and the Diehards radio show. So always looking forward to that. And I'll be here next week. The On the Hot Seat's going to be Thursday. Going to have Sam Holt on from Fantasy Life. She just did a great job, the whole Women of Fantasy Football crew at the Super Bowl. So I wanted to talk to her about her experience and just, how she found the whole thing. I've done the whole Radio Row thing many, many years. I have not for the last few years since the whole COVID thing when everyone quit traveling. So, and, funny about that, a lot of things that stopped don't start back up. Some things do. Not everything. So anyway, I want to hear more about her experience. I want to hear about Brian Drake's experience too. He'll be on the radio program today. He went to the Super Bowl, went to the game. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that as well. So plenty of good stuff ahead. So, as looking at these drafts, I thought the Superflex draft, it was interesting. We had quarterbacks went pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, pick 4. I'll read them off in case you're not following along. Josh Allen, first overall, totally defensible. I mean, I can't imagine a super flex draft where he does not go number 1 overall. Jalen Hurts, number 2, Lamar Jackson, number 3. I took Anthony Richardson at 4. Might be a little aggressive. As I mentioned, my guy Bloom has him as, has a ceiling at quarterback 3. I think so too. The first non-quarterback here went at pick 5, Christian McCaffrey, who is my 101 just in general in a regular league. And I'll talk about that in the fantasy notebook this week as I talk about the cheap plays. There's one player I'm willing to pay up for it. It's without fail, Christian McCaffrey. I took CeeDee Lamb at team 6. Patrick Mahomes back to the quarterback run at 7. I took Dak Prescott at 8. So 6 quarterbacks off the board in the first 8 picks. Tyreek Hill went at number 9. Justin Jefferson went at 10. Breece Hall at 11. CJ Stroud at 12. I followed that up with Bijan Robinson. Joe Burrow, Justin Fields went next. And then the quarterback slowed down. And we talked a little bit about going into the show. And I think if you've been out there drafting in super flex leagues, you've probably experienced the same thing. Every one of them is a different thing, right? They are all like take on a life of their own. And the dynamic in the room tends to change from draft to draft. So there's no real, I know there are people in this chat who in 2 quarterback leagues will wait very late. I'm looking at you, scampers. And so I tried that on one of these teams. I tried to hold out. So the one team that the team that I took CJ Stroud on, I waited until round, I want to say 6 to snag my next quarterback. I got Bijan, Devontae Adams, Nico Collins, Mark Andrews, and then I took my next quarterback. I felt like I was pushing it too far, but I did not. It was Geno Smith, who I think is, wherever he goes, if he remains a Seahawk, he'll be the starter. If somebody trades for him, it's ostensibly to be the starter. And then I followed that up with Jackson Smith and Jigba in case it is Seattle. So you can push it out a little bit. Yes, you. Christian McCaffrey, right? Like why, the thing that makes him the number 1 is just like something we'll be talking about. By the way, Kevin got in here on this. In response to Russ Lade, there will be great values of wide receiver with this deep draft class. Yes, early drafts at wide receivers who are scheme versatile and can get open. That decreases the risk you're taking in best ball guys like Jalen McMillan, Roman Wilson, Malik Washington. Leggett is a guy that I heard a lot about from people who follow the whole rookie thing. That's a guy I'm going to have an eye on. So interesting. Yes, and CMC, another good year. Why? It's usage. It's volume. Volume is king, people. Volume is our new friend. It's our new best friend. If it's not, it should be. Want to make volume my friend. I mean, it's the certainty, the only certainty, and there's just a narrow band of people who get it. So when you get those people, it's a great thing. I always talk about Christian McCaffrey being, a player and a half. Well, not over everybody, but the point at which he is a player and a half compared to the field is running back 5. That's where he takes over, and he's giving you player and a half. So 4 running backs that don't live up to that he can't claim, or 3 that he can't claim player and a half value over. Everybody else he can. That's leverage over the field, people. That's like super valuable. Dame, getting greedy. What about my Cooper Kupp rebound? Stroud at the 6th round. So I did not get Stroud at 6th round. I got Geno Smith. I got Stroud at the end of round 1. Yes, Stroud at the 6th round. But you may get him. So he'll be quarterback 6. He was a 6th quarter. He was later than the 6th quarterback. But I think expecting him to be going around the 6th quarterback is about where I'm seeing him going in single quarterback leagues. I think that's reasonable, whether it's round 4, 5, maybe 6, depending on how that league plays out. I think that's a reasonable outcome. I want to say in this league so I got him at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got him at quarterback 7. And I think the guys that went ahead of him, Smith. I think in single quarterback leagues, you'll probably see Anthony Richardson go after him. That was the outlier. And I was being aggressive there because I'm drafting with Dempsey. and he knows that I have yet to get a share of Richardson, and I really want one, and so I couldn't let it go any further. I could not. Laviska Shenault, maybe Leggett, maybe fancy Laviska Shenault. I don't know. Is that a good thing? Fancy Laviska Shenault or usable Laviska Shenault? Thank you. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. If you have any more questions, get them in now. Going back to this draft, I took Devon Achane as my first running back in one of these teams. I ended up with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown in rounds 1 and 2, Kyler Murray in round 3, Devon Achane in 4, Michael Pittman Jr., who I think is like getting a little bit of, I don't want to say shade, but there's players going ahead of him in underdog right now that I'm taking him ahead of. Got Derrick Henry in round 6, Marvin Harrison Jr., thinking there might be a chance he plays with Murray in round 7, Dalton Kincaid in round 8, and I do not feel in the least bit good about that. So just, interesting, how that one played out. But Devon Achane, how do we feel about Achane? Let's see, the current best ball value is pretty high. I want to say, let's just see a running back. Achane is going, get that out of there. Running back 7, ahead of Saquon Barkley, ahead of Travis Etienne Jr., ahead of Isaiah Pacheco, ahead of Rashad White, James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was running back 3 last year in the weeks 4 through 17. I mean, it's a little uncertainty around his future, but man, Derrick Henry, like, do you think he didn't look good? Do you think he doesn't land somewhere? Aaron Jones, if A.J. Dillon's not around. I mean, I get projecting a little bit, but I don't think Raheem Mostert's going away. I think we're drafting him, and I did in this draft. I drafted him like there's not going to be a Raheem Mostert. Like, it's just all the Devon Achane show. And if it is, will he even be able to hold up? I don't want it to be the Devon Achane show. I want it to be the show with somebody else who allows Devon Achane. We saw what happens with Tony Pollard when you ask him to do a role that maybe he's not ideally suited for. That heavy-duty work road didn't work out for him. Joe Hebert, the key to understanding rookie wide receivers is to know if they are primarily X, Y, or Z receiver. Then you can better determine the realistic workloads in their new offense. In their new offense, that's the thing. So if you're drafting before the NFL draft, I'm a big proponent of waiting until players get helmet on. Even in these early mocks, you will rarely see me take rookies. I know people do, and you take chances, and I get it. And I did in this draft, right? But as a general rule, all rookies, even running backs. I mean, I know they're probably going to end up in fortuitous places, but I'm going to draft enough after the draft that I'll get those shares. Will I get free shares? Maybe not. But I'll have something to hang my hat on when I do draft them. And I do see the point. Like, if I'm drafting free agents where I don't know where the team is going to be, assuming that they're going to land in fortuitous spot, why don't I do it with rookies? Because rookies are expensive. People overpay for them, because they're rookies, I think. Like these other guys that I mentioned, they all started to pick like 163. Zach Moss is pick 163. If I'm getting rookies down, I'll start mixing rookies in at that range, but I don't overpay. Are they a good scheme fit? Do I understand what the supporting cast is or the level of competition they'll face? All of those things matter to me. And again, I'll draft enough after the draft that I'll be fine with all that. It's a scary world out there, this pre-draft drafting. Yet we still do it, right? How many of you are out there doing best balls yet? Is anyone doing best balls? I saw a couple people. I know Dame said she was not. The best balls are pretty fascinating because you see, and I feel like in some of these leagues, like even in this, I feel like, this time of year, best ball mode is almost default. Why? Because I'm starting to stack guys. So like pairing guys is great. Pairing a good receiver with his quarterback at the right price is perfectly fine. But I think it's more a best ball mentality where you want to get 3 guys from one offense and start stacking them up. And I don't know if that's necessarily the path to success always. One down for Royal Slade. Any thoughts where Derrick Henry might land? I think Minnesota would be great. I think Baltimore would be better, but Minnesota's probably should be on the list. Houston should be on the list. I've heard the Chargers mentioned as a possibility. The Chargers also a possibility with Saquon Barkley. So I think the top of that free agent class is very interesting. Saquon Barkley, I mean, I feel like the Giants should probably keep him. I feel like they want to keep him. Will they keep him? But the top of the, I feel like these things kind of narrow out, level out, or the talent level drops off pretty noticeably early on. I want to say Derrick Henry to me is a guy that probably teams should be in on. Eyeball test last year, I thought he still looked like he could get it done. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, the Raiders, he would like to remain a Raider. I don't know if they'll pay him, especially when they have Zamir White playing on a, $900,000 deal. Austin Eckler, we saw him try to get paid last year, and nobody was really that interested in paying him, even the Chargers. He doesn't know. I know my guy, Michael Fabiano, talked to him a couple weeks ago in Vegas, and he has no idea what's going to happen. Oh, Micah Parsons wins the NBA Celebrity All-Star Game MVP because he's Micah Parsons. Derrick Henry right up there. I think Derrick Henry's is, depending on the landing spot, will be a great play. I've been drafting him regularly. He's going far cheaper than he should. Some of the other free agent running backs we'll see, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson might be interesting if he goes to the right spot. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are both free agents. Ezekiel Elliott, could he go back to Dallas and free Tony Pollard to be the Tony Pollard we've come to know and love before last year? Or is that more McCarthy related? These are things we need to figure out. Devin Singletary, could he remain a Texan? I mean, I think the Texans running back is going to be somebody I'm interested in, whoever that is. Even if it's Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, A.J. Dillon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris, Kareem Hunt, Deonta Foreman, Cordero Patterson, Jerick McKinnon. We've fallen off now. Rico Dowdle, Chase Edmonds. I mean, I don't know what Rico Dowdle is. Maybe he could be good. Joshua Kelly, pretty sure he won't. Latavius Murray, Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny, I'm not a fan of you, sir. I was a fan of him. So plenty of. Puka had 12 dunks. Best ball was created by a Gabe Davis owner. Probably so. Thank you, Brian Larkin. I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone coming. So that's what I saw. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not up to speed on NBA things. So I did see something floating through my Twitterverse about Puka Nacua dunking things. I thought he was having donuts. I don't know. The NBA, not my game. Baseball either. It's football. Football die hard. There's a reason for that. All right, everybody. Again, check me out later today at the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio show called Football Diehards. Mike Dempsey and myself will be entertaining you with a guest named Brian Drake from Fantasy Points, and from and Joe Pisapia from FantasyPros and the author of the Rookie Black Book. What do the Eagles look like next season? I don't think we know. I think the backfield's going to be interesting. But Kellen Moore at offensive coordinator, could we see a little more downfield passing? Could we see more consistent production for A.J. Brown and maybe Devontae Smith? More concerted effort to get the ball down the field? I would like to see that. I would like to see a different running back there, one that can... Henry? Nah, they'd never do that. I wonder if one of these receive, I wonder if they swap out DeAndre Swift for the likes of a Tony Pollard or an Austin Eckler or one of the more satellite kind of backs. I'll be interested to see. I think the Eagles are a team to watch. I do think the move to get Kellen Moore is very interesting. He's very good. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming. Again, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Watch your X feeds. You'll see me there. And I'll remind you, Sam Holt from Fantasy Life will be on with me talking about her Super Bowl experience and more. We're looking ahead at the fantasy situation on the hot seat right here on this channel. I'll be back next Saturday. We will discuss more things. I will have done more drafts and more nonsense. We'll be ready for you. And appreciate everyone coming as always. Y'all have a great week, great weekend. And I'll talk to you next Thursday or today on the radio. See ya.